Welcome back to the channel, guys. I am here to talk about a super exciting topic that is in the media and in the news literally almost every day these days. And we're gonna talk all about inflation. So if you're wondering why things are getting more expensive, then this video is for you. So what exactly is inflation? Well, inflation, right, is when the price of things goes up. And why does that happen? The definition of inflation really is more dollars chasing fewer goods. And so if there's more dollars out there and the same number of goods are out there, then it just causes the price to go up, utilizing the law of supply and demand. So let's talk about why inflation occurs and what it really means. First thing I want to talk about is why it occurs. Again, we've spoken just briefly that if there's more dollars coming in and there's only so many goods, then that's going to cause price to go up because of competition. Interesting thing, when you look back to 2020, right, when we had COVID, the government was pouring lots and lots of money into the economy, right? They were literally writing checks or putting money in your bank account. And when that happens, you have more cash in, then you have the ability to spend more. First, what occurred back then was savings. Actually, people had savings that they'd never had before. Then when things started going, we started releasing and kind of getting back out, people started spending that money. And everyone became competition for the other person. And so that caused prices to go up. We certainly saw it in homes, but you saw it literally everywhere. Because so much money was poured into the economy in 2020 and continued in 2021, again, that caused inflation to really spike. Like we got up near 10%. Fortunately, it didn't quite hit that number, but 10% or 9% inflation is a very large inflation number. The Fed's goal is to have inflation around 2%. And so when inflation started spiking, the Fed acted a little bit too late, right? So they didn't jump it fast enough. And how do they control spending? Well, instead of pouring money out, they actually try to pull money away. When you make interest rates very, very low, it makes people spend more money because it costs less to buy, even if you're borrowing. Now, how do you change that, right? You increase rates. Now, the federal government doesn't have a direct correlation or control of mortgage interest rates, but they do control something called the Fed funds rate. What that is the rate at which banks lend each other money overnight. Now, how does that relate to any of us? So let's take a real world example on inflation. So we just utilized some Clorox wipes here in my office as we were cleaning up, and we just looked at the cost of Clorox wipes for a 3-pack. It's a little over $10, but we're gonna utilize an example of $10. If something is $10 right now, and we have a rate of inflation of 10%, a year from now, that same good that was $10 will now be $11. Now, if inflation were to come down, most people tend to think that prices will come down, but that's not how inflation works. If prices come down, that's actually deflation. And while that may sound great, there's another whole slew of problems that can come along with deflation. So let's say we go back to inflation coming down to 5% instead of 10%. So if we start off at the price of $10, right, that $10 now, a year from now, is $10.50. Right, so it hadn't gone up to 11, but it's gone up to $10.50. But that's what happens with inflation, right? Things go up in price for the same good. It means your dollar is worth less. So why deflation is not great is generally deflation occurs when the economy is doing very poor, and that means people are losing jobs. It's interesting right now in where we are in this economy and why the Fed is hopefully going to be acting very soon in September is because we are concerned about a recession. And recessions naturally come with job loss. And so what we're trying to do, or what the Fed is trying to do, is to keep this consistent enough but not spike, and so where inflation will stay, again, as close to zero as possible into that 2% range. We're down to 2.9% as of this week. It's the lowest inflation we've had in at least 2 years. And so that's great news for our overall economy. Now the concern is it going to cause us to have more problems with the economy and cause a recession? And that's very possible, but the Fed's goal is to try to create this soft landing. Many of you guys may have heard that term, and the soft landing piece is where we go from high inflation to lower inflation, but the economy still grows, where we're not seeing all of a sudden major job loss. So how does this relate to the housing market? I believe we are in a very unique window as we are approaching the Fed starting to cut rates, where buyers, because interest rates have remained fairly high, right in the 7% range for a very long time, the last 2 years or so, there's been a cool down of buyers. We've seen listing inventory start to rise. In some markets, it's spiked. Fortunately, in the Triangle and most of North Carolina, it started to rise slowly. So there are homes out there on the market, and there are fewer buyers chasing those homes. Right now, you've got the ability to go and negotiate a lower price if you're a buyer. If you look and wait literally a few more months, if interest rates start to drop another half point or so, you're gonna find yourself in major competition. So if you're a buyer, you're thinking about purchasing a home, it is really a great time to do that before you have to start competing with multiple buyers. And here's really important to note, one thing to note. If you're a seller, right, you want as many people looking at your property and making offers, because then those buyers are going to be fighting for that property, and then obviously increase their price to compete. If you're a seller and you only have one offer, well, now that buyer has a lot more control and has the ability to negotiate downward, depending on how bad you want to sell the property. So again, if you're a buyer, I think right now, before inflation actually peaks at a low level and we start to see interest rates drop, you've got a great opportunity to find a home and get a great deal. Rates will probably still come down lower later, but while everyone else is fighting over those opportunities, you just get a chance to refinance into a lower interest rate and save more money than you already did. Yeah, to summarize this video, it is important to understand that while a lot of people hate and are fearful of the term inflation, inflation is a good thing. It's what keeps economies going. It's just really important that we don't have massive inflation. And as we head towards that 2% target of the Fed, that's going to be really good for a lot of people across the country. And in terms of the housing market, lower inflation is going to be great for buyers and homeowners already, because that's going to bring lower interest rates, which is going to cause people to have the opportunity to save more money, to have more money in their household or stay in their household or go into their savings. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to put some comments in below, and we'd love for you to like and subscribe, and be sure to share this video with others that you know. If there's anything you'd like for me to talk about and share with you more in detail, be sure to mention in the comments below, and we'll bring it up in the next video.